So I called my mom, and she couldn't talk. She was crying, she was upset, said there was an accident. I asked how my sister was.
I think they've heard the horror stories from their parents. Don't text message while you're driving and everything, but I think like teens are, they have to see it or hear it.
The results of, texting, talking to your cell phone can be deadly.
I think this is a wake-up call, if you will, for all of us to really take a look at what we are doing when we're behind the wheel.
It's a roadmap to tragedy, teens, texting and driving. In the next half hour, we hear from the victims, driving instructors, and other teens to keep you from being the next victim. Almost everyone has one of these. And if you've got one, you're likely guilty of either picking it up or watching someone text or talk behind the wheel. It may not seem like a long time to take your eyes off the road, but it is enough time to take a life. Here in the small southwest Iowa town of Shenandoah, there's a message that resounds across the state and across the country. That message, keep your eyes on the road.
Very friendly, loved everybody, always happy, always, always.
I love my name!
Melissa Dingus moved to Iowa from her Hesperia, California home when her little sister Angelina was 4 years old.
We talked. She would send me drawings and, as she was growing up.
Despite the distance in years and miles, the sisters were close. But in one moment in November of 2009, tragedy tore the pair apart.
We had dinner, was watching TV, and 9:30 I get a phone call.
15-year-old Angelina was gone.
She was in an accident and she was killed. And it was very surreal.
An 18-year-old driver was texting and talking on her cell phone when her truck swerved and hit Angelina and her two friends as they were walking home.
It was about 3 houses away from my mother's house, which is where my sister lived. I don't know if it was instinct or by accident, but she pushed her friend out of the way when it happened.
That friend was airlifted to the hospital with serious injuries. Angelina died on impact.
The day that we buried her, I made a promise to her that I would do everything in my power to try to change this.
Melissa became the first Iowan to join Focus Driven, a group dedicated to stop distracted driving.
I am quoted in some of this here as well, this first story. And I just did an article with the local paper here last Friday.
Her message is showing up everywhere, from newspapers in Iowa and California to the radio and on TV.
Because of something that should be so common sense, a lot of lives are changed. You want green?
Melissa knows the law won't stop drivers from texting or talking, but she hopes they'll at least think twice before they take a life.
There is no phone call or text message that is that important, that it can't wait.
The San Bernardino County Sheriff says the 18-year-old charged in the crash took a lie detector test in mid-January. She then admitted she made 2 phone calls and sent 3 text messages in the minutes leading up to Angelina's death. She faces 15 years in prison. Before the crash, she had a clean driving record. The message of don't text and drive is everywhere. Over the next half hour, we'll look at where it's popping up in pop culture and why it's a tough lesson to teach and learn. And Iowa lawmakers pass a law against cell phones and drivers. More on the debate to crack down on this dangerous habit. But next, we're putting 2 teens to the test to see if they can text and drive safely.
This KCRG TV9 special report, Eyes on the Road, is brought to you by Grinnell Mutual.
It gets a little scary because you do start to see all those people driving and you see them start to come off the road.
Nielsen says the average teen in the U.S. sends or receives an average of 2,900 text messages every month. Some teens told us they send hundreds each day. But no matter how many you send or how good you think you are at texting, you'll be surprised to see how it impacts your ability to drive safely. It takes one glance to cause a crash. In this video, this teen driver looks away for 6 seconds, barely missing a pole on the side of the road.
Well, texting is really one of the most attentionally demanding tasks that a driver can do because it takes away their eyes off the road for a substantial amount of time.
The University of Iowa uses this, the National Advanced Driving Simulator, for its research.
The university has done a number of studies looking at cell phones and driving.
The look and feel are as close as you can get to the real thing. We put 2 teens into the simulator with their cell phones and asked them to text while driving on a simulated course.
Do I need to work the gas at all?
18-year-old Peter Dolan is first. This screen shows different camera angles from inside the car.
Drive for a little bit more without doing anything.
Okay.
Now he starts off okay, but once he starts texting, keep your eye on his speed. In just a moment, you'll see a white car pull out from the side of the road.
Okay, yeah, take your hands and feet off.
I still kind of feel a bit shocked just because that car pulled out and everything, and then there was another car coming at me.
Of the few hundred texts he says he sends a day, he says he doesn't text in the driver's seat.
I try to avoid those situations just by not doing it in the first place.
Are you good?
Sure.
Let's see how 17-year-old Zoe Salisbury does with our test.
Might beat you at your own game.
She's driving the same course as Peter and is going much slower. Now here comes the car.
All right, that's it. We're stopping you.
You know, I can't do this because I'm going to get in an accident. Like, first 5 minutes, I almost hit over the white cars.
Okay. Now it's my turn. Since I watched Peter and Zoe take the test, the crew running the simulator switched the driving course. Just like Peter and Zoe, I'm okay until I start texting. Now keep your eye on that van in front of me.
I think I failed.
Peter, Zoe, and I drove with a visual manual distraction, meaning we looked away from the road while using a cell phone. Dr. McGehee says that's a dangerous combination of a visual distraction, which is like glancing at your watch, and a manual distraction, like changing the radio station. Studies have shown you can look away from the road for about 1 3/4 seconds before you start swerving. Now it takes a few seconds, 3 or 4 seconds, to type a couple of letters in a text message, which is more than enough time to cause a crash.
What's frustrating for us to see in our research is that you'll have a carload of your own kids and you might be texting or talking on the phone, really putting your family at risk.
So what did our teens learn?
Just don't text and drive.
You're taking your eyes off the road, and that's not good at all.
Everywhere you look, the message of don't text and drive seems to be there. There are websites and Facebook groups dedicated to putting a stop to distracted driving. Oprah started a no texting campaign called the No Phone Zone, and she's asking her viewers to make a pledge that will save lives.
Use your voice to encourage everybody you know to think twice before reaching for your cell phone the next time you are behind the wheel. And I know everybody thinks that they can handle it, but you can't. You can't.
Articles on the dangers of distracted driving are also popping up on newsstands. In the January 2010 issue of Glamour magazine, the article, The Scary New Truth About Women in Driving, highlighted some shocking statistics on the consequences of multitasking on the road. Teen drivers start developing driving habits when they're still passengers, watching parents, older friends, or siblings behind the wheel. Driver's ed instructors say it's challenging to teach new drivers who watched others text and drive without consequence. And that's because it often takes consequences to teach a tough lesson.
So just stay in this lane now.
It's the rite of passage to the open road.
Now go straight all the way down.
Driver's ed is the gateway for teens to get a license and the responsibility that comes with that piece of plastic.
Driving is a movie that's never can be rerun again. It's always a different situation.
It's up to Brian Lynch to prepare teen drivers for those situations. 17-year-old Lee Wynn and 15-year-old Dima Christner use text messages to talk to their friends. But they say they don't need a class to teach them to not text and drive.
I don't really text when I drive, so I'll probably never do it either, so I'll probably never think about it much.
I think like teens are, they have to see it or hear it from other people they know to realize the dangers of it.
I don't think people should do that. Like wait until you stop or something. Look in the road the whole time.
Iowa State Trooper Bob Conrad deals firsthand with drivers who haven't learned that lesson.
One of the things that we do as troopers is we give death notification. And when you've got to go to a house, someone you've never met, knock on their door and tell them their loved one's not coming home because of something simple like paying attention, not being on a phone, it's frustrating.
Trooper Conrad works closely with drivers' education programs as a safety education officer with the Iowa State Patrol. Along with speeding, drinking and driving, and seatbelt usage, he says he's noticed more accidents involving new drivers and cell phones. So think about it this way. Say you're driving down the highway at about 50, 60 miles an hour, and you look down at your phone to type a text message. Well, in that amount of time, you've taken your eyes off the road for the entire length of a football field. While right turns, parallel parking, and changing lanes are good things to practice, it's paying attention that's worth more than a grade.
You always have to look out for the next guy, because you can control your driving, the kids and the adults can, but you can't really control anything else when anyone else is doing. You just have to defensively monitor that.
Driver's ed instructors say a law would help them teach new drivers to pay attention behind the wheel. Still to come, we'll take you to a city that's leading the way in Iowa by cracking down on cell phones in city limits.
Put Puddles on the line. Yes, I know he's a dog. Puddles, you're going outside with Jennifer to do your business, right by your favorite bush.
Brittany, time travel is totally possible. The fabric of time is interwoven.
Some people choose unlimited calling, others choose unlimited texting. But there's one thing not included in any calling plan. The common sense not to talk or text while you drive.
Talking and texting while driving isn't worth the risk. Check out distraction.gov.
When you get in your car, buckle up and put your handheld device, your cell phone or your BlackBerry, in the glove compartment so you will not be tempted to use it while you're driving. Put both hands on the wheel, keep both eyes on the road, and you'll be safe.
As lawmakers in Des Moines and Washington, D.C. tackled the topic of texting and driving, the city of Dubuque set restrictions of its own. It became the first city in Iowa to restrict cell phones in the driver's seat within city limits. Iowa's new statewide ban will force Dubuque to throw out its ban. But even so, city leaders take pride in their proactive approach to a deadly problem. Drivers in Dubuque know the dangers they face with a cell phone in hand.
You don't pay attention to whether it's how fast you're going or what's going on around you, the lights changing. I mean, just little things like that you just don't notice.
The results of, texting and talking to your cell phone can be deadly.
That's why city leaders put a stop to it.
This is a case of the law trying to catch up to technology.
City Council member Dirk Voetberg proposed the ordinance that's cracking down on cell phone usage behind the wheel.
We can't put everybody in a bubble. We can't make everything safe, but I think those things that we can deal with, we ought to.
It's not always easy to see if somebody is actually texting or using their cell phone.
Police say the ban is a challenge to enforce, but worth the trouble.
I've seen it firsthand while on patrol, somebody utilizing a cell phone and rear-ending somebody else, and we were right there when it happened.
Dubuque's ban took cell phones out of the hands of every driver. With Iowa's statewide ban, those 18 and older can talk with a handheld phone, but texting is still off limits to everyone. And once you cross the state line into Dubuque, police say you'd better know the law.
Drivers, you cross that bridge, the laws change, so they're technically responsible to know those laws and abide by them.
Dubuque police are catching drivers in the act. In the first 30 days, officers handed out 64 warnings. 6 states, including Florida, Kentucky, Louisiana, Mississippi, Nevada, and Oklahoma, have laws that don't allow cities or counties to enact bans. Iowa's new law also won't allow cities or counties to pass bans, meaning Dubuque's ban will be thrown out once the state law goes into effect. But do bans on cell phones work? A new study says no. The Highway Loss Data Institute looked at insurance claims from states with handheld cell phone bans. Researchers found bans didn't reduce the number of crashes. They also compared states and cities with bans to those with no restrictions and found the numbers were similar. The Insurance Institute for Highway Safety is gathering more data to determine why bans aren't effective. One theory is that drivers are simply ignoring the law. Iowa lawmakers approved a ban that will impact the entire state. Coming up, we'll talk to lawmakers in Des Moines about the debate on that ban and break down what it means for you.
We make Jules fancies you. Cass. Oh, it's not even funny now. It's
There are a number of states taking this issue into their own hands by making their own rules. 6 states and the District of Columbia don't allow drivers to use handheld devices behind the wheel. 19 states, including neighboring Illinois and Minnesota, specifically ban texting and driving. And among the states passing new legislation is Iowa. We talked to lawmakers at the beginning of the 2010 session to get their take on this controversial issue. When the first gavel fell for the 2010 legislative session,
the House will be in order.
Iowa lawmakers set an ambitious 80-day goal to tackle tough issues like the budget and creating jobs. But the issue of texting and driving didn't go unnoticed.
We've discussed that issue last year.
Representative Brian Quirk is chairman of the House Transportation Committee. He says in previous years, a ban on texting and driving was too broad, including a ban on cell phones in general.
If we can narrow our focus to texting and driving, I think it has a very legitimate chance.
And he was right. Senator Joe Bolcom introduced cell phone legislation in the past that never made it to the floor. In 2010, he put his support behind the bill that passed.
I think this is a wake-up call, if you will, for all of us to really take a look at what we are doing when we're behind the wheel.
But not all lawmakers saw a ban as a priority going into the session and instead wanted to focus on balancing the budget and creating jobs.
Those are dramatically more important than dealing with whether or not someone should be able to use a cell phone or OnStar.
My focus is going to be if it doesn't balance the budget or if it doesn't create jobs, why are we debating the bill?
But they did debate the bill. It went back and forth between the House, Senate, and a committee before lawmakers agreed on a final version. Governor Culver made it clear he supports the ban for fear that millions of federal dollars are at stake. So here's what the new law means for you. Virtually all drivers can't text and drive. Adults cannot be pulled over just for texting. It's a secondary offense. If you're under 18 or have a graduated license, you can't text, email, or talk with a handheld phone while driving. Police can pull younger drivers over if they see you using a cell phone. The ban goes into effect July 1st of 2010. The first year will be a warning-only time period as drivers learn about this new law. Law enforcement officers will only give warning tickets until July of 2011. If you're caught after that, you'll face a $30 fine. If texting causes an injury or a fatal accident, the fine jumps to $1,000 with a 180-day license suspension. Texting and driving laws are also developing at the federal level. U.S. Secretary of Transportation Ray LaHood told me with confidence that he expects a federal law to come through in 2010. He says the use of cell phones has become an epidemic since most drivers nowadays have one.
The way you get good enforcement is with good bipartisan legislation, which I believe the legislation will be bipartisan as it moves through Congress this year.
In late January of 2010, the feds banned texting for truck and bus drivers on federal interstates. The fine is more than $2,700. The head of the American Bus Association says a lot of bus companies already have that policy. Some Democrats are pushing for more restrictions. One bill would force states to ban all texting on the road or lose federal highway funds. Over the last few years, there's been increased awareness to the issue of texting and driving. As national groups like Focus Driven push for federal laws, distracted driving will kill or injure more people. But the debate continues on if bans will save lives. In California, where a driver hit and killed Angelina Bandino, a ban has been in place for 2 years. But the statistics and simulated research show texting and driving is a serious problem. So the next time you get into your car, ask yourself, will you send that text or take that call, or will you keep your eyes on the road?
This KCRG TV9 special report, Eyes on the Road, is brought to you by Grinnell Mutual.